It's me, darling. Oh my god, my voice sounds sort of gross. It's been a slow day for me. Getting out of bed and everything. Like, I'm trying this new thing where I wake up at a certain time and I wake up mad early. I go to sleep mad early. Yeah, I've been eating right. I've been, getting outside, getting in the sun, all that stuff. But, like, with all that being said, once you start glowing up and doing what you have to do, you're gonna get energetic attacks. And that was not what I intended to talk about with this Ask Me Anything. But you are gonna get energetic attacks. Aside from that, you just have to take the time to adjust, and your life just needs that time. It takes about 21 days or 3 weeks. But that's not what this particular Ask Me Anything is about. This particular Ask Me Anything is about the new moon. And so I am not wearing any makeup. I am not even my eyebrows. I'm just wearing lip gloss, and I have a really good reason for that, and it is completely related to this moon. I'm gonna grab my decks because I am intending to pull cards, but we'll see what universal energy directs us to do. But yeah, so I'm not wearing any makeup, and yesterday when I made the video for the Patreon, I was like, my skin looks crazy, I need to put on makeup. It's like, I traveled across the country, I'm adjusting to the water, thanks y'all. I'm adjusting to the water, and also I'm having stress-related skin reactions, according to my dermatologist. So I looked in the mirror this morning and I was like, yo, my skin looks crazy. I'm also coming out of my cycle. And the reality, that was the moment I decided, I'm not going to put on makeup today. I did yesterday. I didn't really care for my makeup. I spent all this time doing it, even though I didn't really feel like doing it. And I decided not to today because I felt like that really didn't align with the message of this moon. And I think that's important to say because it's honestly, I do all the right stuff. I have a ton of skincare products that are not all that inexpensive. I've been to the dermatologist to find out what's been going on with my skin, and I do the best that I can. I drink enough water. I wash my face every day, every morning and every night. I do all the stuff, right? But it's not going to be always perfect. It's not going to be always nothing's going on. That's not how life goes. And I think that is the most important thing that I want to impart with what we're experiencing with this new moon in Aquarius energy. So we have a superstellium is what I'm going to call it, because it's 6, not even just 6 placements, because placements could be the part of fortune, it could be Chiron, it could be any of those things that are not actually celestial bodies. No, we have 6 celestial bodies right now in Aquarius in the 6th house. So that is a lot of Aquarian energy related to the body, related to health. And when I say related to the body, we have to remember that the 6th house is related to Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. The 6th house is related to Mercury too. Mercury is very much about mental cognition. It's about systems. It's about comprehension. When I think about Mercury, I think about the prefix com. Community for sure, because you cannot communicate if you don't have anything to communicate with. But communication, comprehension. But I think that one thing that I haven't really associated with Mercury in the prefix com is compassion, which is interesting because, you know, Virgos, that's an earth sign. They're some of the like biggest hearted people that I personally know. They feel harder and deeper than I think that they're willing to show people. Geminis are also the same. It can sometimes be that they come off as being so mercurial and so like aware of things and keen and like they can seem like they're very much like rigid and stiff in some ways, and not the most gentle of people. Sun Mercury and Sun Virgo and Sun Gemini, but the thing is, actually, they feel very, very deeply, and you cannot really be that intelligent if you're not emotionally intelligent, if you're not intuitive, if you're not tuned in every single system of your body. That is to say, in every single body that you have, not just your physical body, not just your mental body, your emotional body, your spiritual body, or like ethereal body, your light body. If you're not tuned into any of those systems, I promise you that like the rest of the systems are not operating as they should. So we're talking about the sixth house, we're talking about Mercury, and I think that the solution that when we are met with Mercury, because we are also having Mercury retrograde, and that Mercury retrograde is in Aquarius with that superstellium. When we're experiencing that energy, we can tend to get really in our heads about things, and that's really unhealthy. We have to bring in the compassion. Instead of being all up in our heads, we've got to get back into the rest of our bodies, and that includes our physical body, which means that we can feel pain again. We can't just be objective. We can feel. That's it. We can feel anything, because with our physical bodies comes a sensitivity that is inextricable from the human experience. Humans, like, unless something is very, very out of alignment, we can't fathom life without an understanding of feeling. And by out of alignment, I even mean like if you really have no sense of empathy and sensitivity, then you are literally ill, and that's called narcissism. That is an illness that you have to see a professional to deal with. And the unfortunate thing is, in this system, in this society, we're all indoctrinated into this narcissistic behavior, because this society doesn't value femininity. It doesn't value sensitivity. It tells us that we have to be logical, and that's very mercurial, right? It tells us that we have to be logical, and it really discourages us from doing anything that has to do, or honoring anything that has to do with our sensitivities. But once again, coming back to prefixes, and spellcasting was my first practice, so I think a lot about language, but sensitivity is like sen, the prefix sen, and that has to do with receiving messages from outside of us and processing them. It has nothing to do with reacting or acting. It's just about receiving and processing. Processing is an act, but it's one that we can't really we react to the process. We don't actively stop ourselves from processing necessarily. That gets a little bit deeper than I want to go right now, but reception is something that is related to feminine energy, and I want us to just transcend the binary there, transcend that colonial thinking of binary genders and binary sexes. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about energy. Negative energy and positive energy. Neither of those things is bad or good. It just is. And then there's also neutral energy. And so getting a little bit more into the point of why I'm saying this, we are receiving, that's the sen part of it. Sensitivity, sensation, but sensing anything, we sense with our eyes. We have however many senses, you know what I mean? Like, that is a part of being human. That is a part of being alive. And we came to exist on this plane in order to experience life, in order to experience humanness. And to be human is to err, right? It's about learning. And how do we learn? We don't learn by being right all the time. We learn by making mistakes. And when we see that something needs to be innovated upon Aquarius, Uranus, and also Saturn, we hopefully will shift gears and innovate upon it. And so, like I said, I decided, like, I'm not gonna wear any makeup for this. I don't care that, like, I am noticing all of the imperfections about my skin. I'm the one who lives in this skin. Of course, I'm gonna be the one who notices all of the imperfections. But first of all, those things do not define me. It goes up, it goes down. Some days I have super clear skin, sometimes I don't. You know, I'm a human being living in a world where the outside environment has that impact, and also things that I do have that impact. I can only do the best that I can do and adjust as necessary. This is what this new moon is about. It is about having compassion for ourselves, because it's like, okay, the critical part of me, which is, as I said, we're talking about Aquarius, which the 6th house is in Aquarius, and we have all of these planets, or we have all of these celestial bodies in Aquarius in the 6th house. We have the sun, we have the moon, we have Mercury, which is retrograde, we have Venus, we have Saturn, we have Jupiter, and then we have Saturn. All of this stuff is in the 6th house. And so that's related to Virgo, and that's why we're talking about Mercury. That's why we're talking about Virgo. It's really about how we come into alignment with all of our different bodies. Okay, maybe my skin doesn't look good to me in this very moment. It's not my favorite. I'm just gonna keep doing what I gotta do, and I'll get there eventually. You know what I mean? More will be revealed. Things shift, because that's the nature of the universe, right? In the meantime, I have to understand that that doesn't mean that I'm unworthy of love. That doesn't mean that I'm unworthy of respect. That doesn't mean I'm unworthy of the necessary resources that are, like, the resources that are necessary for me to live a fulfilling life. That doesn't mean that I don't deserve access to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That doesn't mean any of that stuff. And it's really important that people understand that, because there are a lot of things that are imperfect about all of us, and it's not always going to be the more superficial things, superfluous. That is one way in which we are controlled. We can be controlled emotionally by being made to feel like we're not enough based on our outside appearance or our bodies in general. And that's kind of what's being done with mass media. That's kind of how we get indoctrinated. We get indoctrinated into these structures of power that are basically hierarchies. And these hierarchies exist to keep us all oppressed underneath something, someone's else, or in these systems that we get indoctrinated into. So whatever it is for you, and I'm just being super vulnerable about this because, like, my moon is actually in Aquarius, so the moon being in Aquarius right now, like, I feel the need to be to relate my sensitivities. I have shared that there was an experience that I had with somebody that I considered to be my friend who was very hurtful towards me and was really cruel towards me in ways that were very racialized. And that sucks. But I'm not going to let that control my actions, right? Because they may think how they feel about me, and it may be warped by all of these outside structures, right? But that doesn't mean that I have to believe those things, because it does not align with my integrity for me to believe those things. And trust me, the integrity piece is important, because the past 3 years of Saturn especially being in Capricorn, the past 3 years of Jupiter also being in Capricorn has been a big learning lesson about the ways in which we have been made to think certain things about ourselves that are not true. Those of us who are further marginalized along this gradation of worth and value in these systems have been made to feel like, you know, we only have these certain sorts of limitations around us. And the further down you go of that hierarchy, the less space you have to be yourself. And it gets claustrophobic AF. Now, why does this matter? It matters because in the simplest terms that I can create, our root chakra kind of has to do with our first house. It's kind of about like it's about being. And the reality is, when we're born into these bodies, these are the bodies that we get. And there's not actually anything that we can do to change that. We can change some things about these bodies, but ultimately we are the same body that we're always going to be. And so these systems that we have been indoctrinated into control us by making us feel a certain type of way about our bodies. The root chakra, the first house, is also like so much to do. That's our foundation, essentially. Just like childhood is our foundation. Everything builds from that space. It has to do with our integrity. It has to do with Saturn. And if you didn't get to go to the Saturnalia Club Cosmos, you can download the video. You can purchase it for download. It's on my website, which is linked in my bio. But we talk about this. Saturn is related to the root chakra. It's also related to the crown chakra. If our root chakra is out of alignment, everything is out of alignment, and all of our energy is messed up. You cannot effectively manifest the life that you want, which has to do with your second chakra, the sacral, or the svadhisthana. You cannot effectively manifest through your throat chakra, which is related to Venus, which is related to Libra, which has been very important astrologically over the past week. You can't do any of those things because, one, you probably don't really even know what you want in life. I recently had a realization that I remember one of my earliest memories is when I realized it wasn't okay for me to be attracted to people of the same sex as me. And I remember I was very, very young, and that is one of my earliest memories. And it colored everything for me. Everything. It is a huge, huge reason why I abused substances throughout my youth. It is a huge, huge reason. It shaped my perception of what I was going to do with my life, what I was aiming for. And what I was aiming for, because culturally, this was the culture that I was born into, is that I should get a good education and find a rich husband, have kids for said rich husband, and that's it. I don't know what goes past that. You maintain that, I guess. Well, I couldn't do that because fundamentally, that's not who I am. And I spent a really long time hating myself, not even understanding that I hated myself because of that. And we're talking about Aquarius, and we're talking about the new moon, and we're talking about the sixth house being that of healing ourselves. I can go out into the world and I can get angry about people who are homophobic or transphobic. Let's just say it, people who are phobic and people who have a lot of isms. I can be super, super angry at those people because it triggers my trauma. But honestly, if I live in a world where I don't have to interact with those people, I don't have to be angry about that. I don't have to live in that space anymore. Because ultimately, me going out and trying to change them is because I can't change me. And that is not to say that it's not important to do advocacy work, because it is. It's really important to do advocacy work. And all of us ought to be doing that for our own spiritual liberation. But the most important advocacy work that we can do for ourselves is for ourselves. We've got to be okay with ourselves. We've got to be right within, because you can't give away anything that you don't have. So if you're not okay with yourself because of whatever beliefs you've been indoctrinated into to hate yourself, you cannot teach anybody else, especially who's not willing to be taught, to feel any differently. So that's, I'm talking about the sixth house and it relating to Mercury and it relating to Virgo, and how we have this massive stellium, specifically the moon and the sun, because we know that when we have a new moon, that means that the moon and the sun are conjunct. They are in fact right on top of each other at the same degree, in the same house and in the same sign. And I'm looking at the chart when I look over here, just FYI. We know that, but we also know that, or maybe you don't, because maybe you haven't seen any of my other videos, but I point this out a lot. Fortuna, the part of fortune, which is basically the lunar ascendant, is like one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite placements. I always look at it whenever I look at anybody's chart. It is on the ascendant in Virgo, in the first house. So that means, what is part of fortune? When you act from this part of yourself, you are in alignment with your destiny. And so you're in alignment with the universe's will for you, and everything just starts flowing to you. I came into that awareness of that phraseology of that term while watching Adventure Time, because I just watched through all of Adventure Time. My first time watching it all the way through, throughout January, and Finn is things are kind of going off the rails in this episode, and there's nothing he can do. And he just goes, okay, time to align my will with the will of the universe. And he closes his eyes and it gets quiet. And then suddenly the answer to all of his problems just appears. He didn't do anything. He just got quiet and aligned himself with the will of the universe and accepted what the will of the universe was for him. And that's what part of fortune is about. For me, and for a lot of other people who do astrology and spiritual stuff, our part of fortune is in Pisces. So I always say this, I never ever thought that I would be doing this stuff ever, because I also never thought that I would be able to be open about practicing magic and being super spiritual and meta and stuff like that. I never thought that I would be able to do or say any of that stuff openly. But once I started acting from that part of me and leading with that part of me, it was the brakes started, the training wheel started the brakes started coming off of all of the wheels of my life, and things got to move forward. So right now we have the part of fortune right on the ascendant, as it always is during a new moon, and it's in Mercury. It's in Virgo. When we start to do the work of healing ourselves and figuring out what that looks like and what that feels like for us, everything's gonna start coming to us. The brakes are gonna fall off all of those wheels. If you think about it more like, and you have a car and they put a boot on your tire, the boot on your tire is coming off now. If you lean into the healing that's on offer, if you align your will with the will of the universe, because as I said, we've been indoctrinated into these unhealthy ideas of what we want. I don't think that I really want to just go to a good school, find a rich husband, have a kid, and call it a day. That was not what I wanted. That wasn't what I wanted, but I had been taught that that was what I wanted. And now that I'm doing things that I actually want, and I'm actually being curious to get to know myself, which is going to be a lifelong process, and that's how I reintegrate the fragmented, disparate parts of myself. Now that I'm doing that, I'm able to find peace. I'm able to find serenity. And that's when the abundance starts flowing to me. But that is a process, and it sounds way easier than it is. Because believe me, it was not easy for me to realize my queer identity. It was not easy for me to come out to my family. It was not easy for me to, I guess another thing is for a while I was just for a long time was I don't want kids. And it has not been easy for me to reconcile the idea that I actually am pretty sure that I do want to have a kid. And that's because it requires a lot of shadow work. It's very rigorous stuff, especially because the first house, usually there's a lot of trauma there. I talk about the trauma of socialization that all of us experience because this society is built upon violence. We are indoctrinated into a system that lives directly oppositional to the flow of the universe. It is about exploitation. It is contingent on this false idea of scarcity, when in reality, the universe is expanding. So the nature of the universe is literally to get more, because there's more to be gotten, because the universe is infinite, and we can't even wrap our minds around that. It is an impossible juxtaposition, but it's real and it's true, and it's important that we step into that understanding, because that's where the liberation happens. And Uranus is about liberation. It's about, in many ways, rebellion from the past paradigm, because it takes a rebellious spirit to go against the grain. And that's how innovation comes in. And that's what Aquarius is about. With new moons, it's about seeding our intentions. It's about, in the most simple of terms, it's about setting and seeding our intentions. And I think right now, especially as this is the first day of the new moon cycle, we have 3 days, starting today, then tomorrow, then the day after, and then we're kind of out of bounds at that point. The moon takes about 3 days to transit through the signs. We have 3 days, and I really suggest, instead of setting your intentions today, sit with this energy. Get quiet. Be patient. Stay open. Stay aware. Not so much of what's going on outside of you, but what's going on inside of you. Because what's going on outside of you is not all that important. It's important to identify what the things are that trigger a certain something in you, But it's important for you to understand that trigger, get to know it, get really comfy and cozy and intimate with it, because that's you. That's your shadow. And frankly, it's not on anybody else to do the shadow work for you. If somebody triggers you and you know what that trigger is and you tell them, hey, this is how I feel about this thing, and they can't adjust to themselves, then it's on you to exit that situation. Because we can't control anyone else. We can't control anything else. All we can do is control ourselves. And it's not about like, oh, I gotta control my feelings. No, that's not possible. When we're dealing with triggers and traumas and stuff from childhood, we don't even remember our entire childhood. I know I don't. I start remembering things around the age of 4, but there was more before that. That was vital to my development. My body remembers, but consciously, I don't remember that. And sure, shadow work does include me remembering that and figuring that stuff out. And I do want to point out the fact that Pluto is in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. Pluto and Saturn are 2 very powerful shadow work karmic planets. I believe actually those are the 2 malefics. And the benefics are Jupiter and Venus. But yeah, and I think Neptune might be a benefic as well. But yeah, that we're talking about shadow work because it's so important, and we've been going all throughout this. We've had these very powerful karmic placements in Capricorn for the past 3 years, and now they are slowly but surely all moving into Aquarius. Pluto's not going to be in Aquarius anytime this year, anytime soon. Right now it's also in the 5th house. It has to do with our self-expression. Why do we do the things that we do? Why do we interact with the world the way that we interact with the world? And also, feel free to ask any questions you might have, even if they're personal questions, if you're okay with me answering them on live. And I'm going to save this to my IGTV. And I'm sure that if you're wondering something, other people are probably wondering it too. But yeah, it has to do with us understanding why we do the things that we do, specifically in relation to why do we find ourselves in situations or with people or in places or doing things that are toxic to us, that are destructive to us, that are hurtful to us. Oops. Why do we do that? Okay. I'm going to answer this question in just a second. Why do we do those things? And it's because we got caught up in these trauma cycles from a very young age. Sometimes they're even from past lives. I've talked about generational curses and that kind of trauma and stuff like that. I talked about that in the video for the Patreon. Not going to get super deep into that because that is stuff that I'm going to talk about on the YouTube and like on here more in the coming months. But if you want to know now, you can subscribe to Patreon. The link is in my bio. But we are now, the brakes are coming off, as I said. The boot is coming off. We are now being catapulted into the future as we transition into Aquarius. And the thing about it is Saturn rules Capricorn, but it also rules Aquarius. And so where Capricorn is about the shadow work, Aquarius is about the light work, and you can only have so much capacity, right? You only have so much capacity. If you are full of shadows and your own personal demons, how much room is there in your vessel for light? So if you want to be a light to the world, you've got to heal. You've got to transcend that lower vibrational stuff that gets stuck and transmute it, because that's you. It's not about anybody but you. Transmute it, get higher, and let all that stuff go. I hope that makes sense. I want to answer this question. Okay, if your boyfriend gets 2 FaceTime calls from an ex and you see it by accident, What do you do? They've shown you their call log to show you. It's not like showing me the whole thing. I'm trying to see the whole thing, but it's not. I'm going to answer what I can from this. But I did see that you said that it showed the whole thing. You can expound a little bit if you want. Also in the comments if you want, just because like it doesn't appear to be showing me everything. I think that this situation is coming up for you in relation to this energy that we're dealing with, because it's triggering you to your trust issues. Is it that you feel that you cannot trust your partner? And if so, why did you choose someone that you can't trust? Because ultimately, perhaps this person is contacting your partner and your partner's not contacting them and has no reason to want to be in contact with them. But your partner can't control that person. Now, what your partner can do is have boundaries, which is to say a very clear boundary is to block this ex. Another less drastic boundary is but potentially more messy boundary is to say, hey, like, I'm not able to talk to you, or like, I don't want to talk to you. But once again, we're bringing it back to you. Either you feel you can't trust your partner for whatever reason, and perhaps that reason is because they're not trustworthy, in which case you have to wonder why you are with them, or you don't trust them because you don't trust yourself. And perhaps that's because like you have had situations in the past where this person where you chose the wrong type of person and you're afraid that that's going to happen again. But if you've done the work, and this can even be about friends, this can be about jobs, this can be about anything, you know what I mean? Like if you've done the work on yourself to understand why you chose a situation in which you could not give yourself fully, and that usually is because we are disregarding our intuition and we're not trusting ourselves. We're not trusting our higher self to communicate with us, like messages of like, this is not okay. And we're also not trusting our lower self. We're not trusting our past selves of like, I remember this thing happened and I felt this way and I didn't listen to myself, and I'm gonna listen to myself now. Where you are right now is those two things have to come together. You have to get really clear on like, do I not trust this person because they're not trustworthy? Or do I not trust this person because in my past this thing happened and now I'm bringing that situation to the present with me? And if that's the case, now's a really good time for you to get rid of all of that baggage, because guess what? Pluto is a knife. Scorpio is a portal of transformation. We have to, and you know, this goes back to a few days ago. I was getting all of this Libran energy. I'm gonna X out of that. I was getting all of this Libran energy, and I was not sure why or where it was coming from, and I came to realize this was a cosmic blurb that I posted on the Patreon. I came to realize why was because the midheaven was the midpoint between the midheaven and the ascendant was in Libra at 3 degrees, and that placement, the Sabian symbol for that is about essentially that Sabian symbol is about change, and it's about going through that portal and letting go of the past so that you can ascend into this new being, this new transmuted version of yourself. And I've been carrying around this butterfly wing I got at a magic store for months now. And I keep getting this like butterfly imagery, which has a lot to do with Libra. And it keeps coming to me because that's where we are right now. We're in the process of a metamorphosis where we're letting go of everything that no longer serves us. Our DNA is being completely rearranged. Butterflies, like the DNA coding for a caterpillar to turn into a butterfly is all inside of the caterpillar, actually. So when it does all of the things that it does, it's because genetically, that's what evolution has told like the caterpillar, that it does that. And so it does that. It builds itself a cocoon. It turns into this goo, which I imagine first you do all of this work, and that's really hard, building this cocoon, and then you turn into goo, and that's probably pretty painful, I would imagine. And then you have to like get your way out of this cocoon that you built, which really reminds me of the Five of Wands, actually. And you have to get your way out of this cocoon that you built, and that's what's going on, or that was what was going on when we had Mars retrograde for the period of time that we had it. It was retrograde in Aries. Now it's in Taurus alongside Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, and Lilith. That's what was going on then, and it's real. And then we get to be this butterfly flying around. And so we're in this period right now where we are stepping into the butterfly phase, because we've dealt with all of the stuff that we've built. We've seen it. And so the work right now, we've seen the consequences of our actions, and we've also seen like, oh, I do this because this thing happened in my life. I do this because, well, I guess I was talking to a friend earlier, and I was talking about, what is it called? I was talking about Gossip Girl and all of these like young teen shows that were like on the CW that had like, if any, characters of color, generally like one black person. And I couldn't relate. I could not relate to that. And I did not find most of the people attractive, and I thought it was, you know, I was already somebody who had been alienated a lot in my life and like weird and stuff like that. And so I didn't find a lot of these like people, these like celebrity superstar actors in these teen shows to be very attractive. And I thought that was weird. And so I basically just like forced myself to be attracted to these people. And so it's like, you know, I'm indoctrinated into this cis heteropatriarchy, and I'm indoctrinated into white supremacy, and I'm like, oh, like I should be attracted to these people that I don't actually find that attractive, because that's what everybody else is doing. And it took a lot of shadow work and decolonization work for me to get to the point of understanding that like I'm not attracted to these people, and that's okay, because there are actually, because that is programming that made me think that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't attractive unless I was, especially unless I was seen as attractive to people that I'm not even attracted to. And so I tried to make myself look a certain way. I tried to dress a certain way. I tried to conform. I'm not good at it, because that's not me, right? That's not who I am. I'm really good at being myself. And when I'm myself, I'm able to see like, oh, this is something that I need to work on within myself. When I'm myself, I'm able to foster real, intimate connections, which ultimately that's what all of us want, especially me. I'm able to foster real, intimate connections with other people, genuine connections with other people, because I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. If we don't get along, we don't get along, and that's fine. We don't have to waste each other's time building a false intimate relationship where neither of us is actually being fulfilled. That kind of rejection is a gift that guides us to what we're supposed to be experiencing, what we are destined to have. And so what becomes important is, as I said, aligning our will with the will of the universe, of our universe. And that, in order to do that, we do have to get grounded. So that is another reason why that whole Virgo energy that we're dealing with this moon is so important. I think I've talked about, Chiron is in Aries, so it really is about how do we show up for ourselves? How do we be the best version of ourselves, right? Because you are actually the summation of your actions. Martin Luther King Jr. said, this is a paraphrase, but judge people on the content of their character, not on the color of their skin. So what does that mean? Judge people? It's not our job to be judge and jury. Really, it's not. But essentially, if we're not okay with stuff about ourselves, if our self-esteem is low, one, does it have to do with superficial systems that exist outside of us? Or two, does it have to do with our actions? We are not doing esteemable actions. We are not doing things that we can be proud of. We are not doing things that foster a relationship of trust with ourselves. Because we're self-abandoning. We're disappointing ourselves, that sort of thing. Is that what we're doing? Because if so, that's why things aren't working. There's a lot about compassion, there's a lot about forgiveness, but those are things that we've kind of already talked about. This is about not being so ostentatious. This is about not being so disingenuous. This is about not changing ourselves to be liked and accepted by everybody. This is about being true to ourselves, being real with ourselves, and being real with others so that we can have those intimate connections and relationships. It's like, oh my God, I want a relationship. Well, why do you want a relationship? Is it because you think that you need that to complete you? And so you keep getting into relationships with people that you don't even like? Just because you feel like you have to be in a relationship? Or because you have to get it in or whatever? The more that we foster the intimate, because what we really want is an intimate connection. We want to be able to connect fully with another person and make something, build something. And that takes work. And if you haven't been able to do the work on yourself by sitting with you and being in you, if you haven't been able to do that work, you probably can't do that with another person. So I guarantee you that relationship is going to end. Period. We gotta sit with ourselves. We gotta figure out how to be the most genuine version of ourselves and be okay with that version of ourselves. Be in acceptance of that version of ourselves. Because that is going to form the basis of all of our relationships. Understanding how we got to be the way that we got to be is key. And then doing all that you can do to heal past those wounds and heal past those traumas and reintegrate all the parts of ourselves. So that's really all that I want to say about this chart. If you are interested in seeing any of the seeing the chart and seeing me actually interpret it in real time, then I would really recommend to you to go ahead and subscribe to the Patreon. That's for people who are more interested in astrology. If you are interested in just getting to know the energy and understanding the work that comes with it and all those associations, then I would suggest that you, check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, like, comment, follow, share on here on IGTV as well. But if you are actually interested in learning about astrology, then I would suggest to subscribe to the Patreon. And so I do want to just pull a card or two. So we get soul family. Oh yeah, that's definitely what we get. Call in your tribe. You don't have to do it alone. You never have to do anything alone. And if people made you feel like you had to, so you were being alienated or ostracized for any reason, it's not true. It may take a little while to find your crew, to find your people. But it is 100% absolutely worth it. Completely. That prefix com coming in again. Complete. Yes. And isn't that true how Gemini and Virgo, ruled by Mercury, are able to understand situations in its completion? But we cannot be complete until we have compassion and don't hold ourselves as this and this thing and that thing. We're all of the things. We're both of the things, and that's okay. But it's up to us to choose how we live in this world. And that's the mark that we leave on the world. Now it's time for us to decide what kind of mark we're going to leave on the world. Are we going to be remembered for being compassionate, kind, loving, joyous, free, generous, all those beautiful things? Or are we going to be remembered for being mean and judgmental and catty and all that stuff that we really ought to have left in high school or middle school? And this isn't a judgment, because I'm still learning too. But it is to say, the work is worth doing. Because the Priestess card is what we get next, and it says, how are you being called to step up and lead? People are looking at you, and you do have an impact on the world. Your energy plays a role in the cosmic makeup, so you're gonna want to go ahead and do your best to be your best, not by anybody else's standards, because there's absolutely no way, like perfection, as I said, it's unattainable. Perfection is really determined for us as long as we are progressing in our spiritual practice, in our practice of being. We're right on time, we're right where we're supposed to be. And we get Tiger Eye, which makes a ton of sense. Here's my Tiger Eye. Mine is tumbled. Yes. This is really good for Mercury retrograde, which, as I said, Mercury is retrograde. It's not going to be not retrograde for, I think, like 2 more weeks. It's not going to go direct until 2 weeks from now. But Tiger Eye from the Crystal Oracle deck, balance your whole being. Oh, my nails are Tiger Eye too. I forgot about that. The currently overthinking and mood swinging Geminis and Virgos. So essentially this is for that Mercurial energy. As I said, balance your whole being. Completion through compassion. That's how we get there. Yes. We found the key phrase for this transit. And a string of prayer beads. Oh, where to put it? In a string of prayer beads hanging from your middle finger, counted during meditation along with your blessings. When your thoughts are not your friends, when reading Jungian theories or attempting to decipher a Zen koan, and the whole shadow theory is one that Jung was able to westernize. When you're all roar and not enough purr, when only equanimity of mind, body, spirit, left brain, and right brain can get you square with the universe. Honestly, don't even feel like, and I honestly, Bloodstone is on the bottom of the deck. Who is it for? I have Bloodstone too. I think it's over there by my bed. Who needs it, constantly overworked and completely drained by the soul-sucking machinations of modern life. Been talking about that, right? Also Capricorns. Pluto is in Capricorn. I mean, a lot of the fourth house, not a lot of the fourth house, but the last third of the fourth house is also in Capricorn, which is very important. We're in that space right now, so Bloodstone's also going to be very helpful, and it says power up your vitals. This energy has been super draining. I don't know if y'all have felt it, but I have certainly been feeling it. And just don't want to get out of bed, don't want to exercise, don't want to eat right, all that stuff. There's a lot of clearing going on. There's a lot of energy happening, karmic cleansing, energy cleansing happening that we don't have any control over. We can only help ourselves or hurt ourselves in the process. So I would recommend ask for ease. Ask the universe for ease and open your vessel up to receiving it. Where to put it, wherever you do the important work, spiritual, physical, and psychological, which is why I believe that it's over by my bed. When to use it, when you're totally bled dry and it's time to get into your body and start feeling your damn self. Whoa! Sleep, get some exercise, take nourishment, and call on Bloodstone to drag your ass out of the house to face the day, chin up, head high. And you're gonna want to drink a lot of water in this time. That's it. Those are all of the cards that want to come through. As usual, I will be posting this reading on IGTV. I will also be posting this reading probably on YouTube. I hope that you guys can see them. Actually, I want you to see the crystals. So if you are interested, I actually have reading specials going on. If you're interested in finding out about your love life, I have reading specials going on for that. The booking link is in the bio. And we're also doing 25% off all Synastry charts, which is you and another person, place, thing, event, idea, whatever, your chart and theirs. And those, I think, those are 25% off. So if you want to book a reading, go ahead, click the link in my bio, click the booking link, and you can go ahead and do that. And also, if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, I make constant weekly content that is really, really helpful. So y'all are also really, really helpful. I love you all truly and deeply, and I really appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you soon.